So I got my inspirations from Pinterest, and I wanted to base it off of like events like the Grammys and VMAs and the Emmy Awards. So I wanted to make something that I would wear if I went to any of those events. So this was kind of what I came up with. So originally I wanted to drape this because I took a draping class last semester. So I used some muslin that I had left over, and I draped it on this mannequin, and I draped this corset. I didn't drape the skirt. And I made my own pattern, so I had to look up like measurements, and I measured and I created my own skirt pattern. And I didn't know how to do like the gathered method, so I had to look it up on YouTube, and I created the gathered method for the skirt. And I wanted to put the tulle over here since the whole thing is kind of like a tulle thing. And I took some of this tulle from my mother's wreath that she makes, and I put it on the top. Well, so my favorite color is purple, so I just wanted different shades of purple to kind of work together. So this is like a deep purple. It's not the deepest I wanted, but it's a deep purple. And this is kind of like a lighter shade of it that I used as the tulle. So I don't exactly know what my future goal is going to be, but after taking this class and after making this garment, I have came to realize that, maybe I could start making designs over the summer and get a little bit more comfortable with making stuff instead of, just basing it off of assignments I do in class. Some encouraging words. Don't overthink so much. Just do it.
Okay, so my name is Raneesha Jackson. I am from the city of Baltimore. I've always been a fashionista growing up in school. Everyone knows me for like the jackets. The name of the question will be the name of my brand, Red Rebellion. So I remember when we were in class and we had to think of like meanings behind colors, and red was the color that has so much meaning to me, and it just represented love, it represented danger, it represented a beautiful rose, and I'm also a little rebellious. That term, Red Rebellion, just describes me. So my inspirations, I like to show my style through cool patterns and also fun little quirky details. So like right here I have ruffles, something to stand out. On there I thought it was like loose in the pockets because I'm an easy breezy type of girl, as you can see. I like to look like I'm not trying so hard and like I'm ready for like maybe vacation or, so those are always the things that I think about when I'm designing. I like to go from a shopper standpoint. My background was retail, so I was a manager and stylist for so long. And I like to think of the lifestyle of my person I'm designing for. Where would she go? And clearly she's probably on vacation or like going to brunch or something. So in that process, I try to think of, what she may need as far as pockets. How hot is it? Do we need, something low cut, or do we need something breathable? She's wide leg, easy breezy, nothing too tight. She can move, she can still get on a roller coaster or whatever she's at. So I just like to think about the lifestyle when I'm designing. I honestly would like to get back to slow fashion. I would like to slow it down just to sustain the environment. And I want to be all about the fit of a person. I think right now we're in the era of like fast fashion and nothing's like personalized anymore. It's like one size fit all. So I would just suggest to new designers to go back to the actual craft, go learn the drafting, learn the sketching, go from ground zero and have fun building your way up. Because I think now where everything's fast paced, it's just like print a design on a t-shirt that's pre-made, and it's like it takes away from the art. So I would like the next generation to go back to the art of design.
So hi, my name is India Harrison, and my brand, I'm eventually want to start my own business, and my brand name is Exotic Collection. I do a lot of revamping. So basically I had saw like stag pants. So I, one day I was just in the house cutting it up and I turned it into a skirt, and I like, that type of look. It was kind of like a streetwear. So eventually I wanted to kind of like base it off of that type of look. So I eventually want to start my own business. Just designing my own pieces. And right now for my business, my collection is exotic collection. So I want to make a whole bunch of different pieces that kind of represent my brand. So this look is basically a little dramatic skirt. So yes, for me, I like my clothes fitting. I feel like for me, I'm kind of petite, so I like my clothes to fit me. So this is made with a spandex material. It shapes the body. I like how it just flows on me. It fits me perfectly. So yes, I feel like my collection is going to be like, kind of to tailor the woman's body to show the curves and everything. So I eventually want to open up like a boutique, or just a boutique selling my pieces inside. But I want to go to school to, better my craft and just know all the ins and outs on the business side. One thing I can say is just definitely follow your dream. If you always wanted to do that since you was a little girl, just go for it, because fashion always been my biggest dream. I went to school for a little bit for nursing and changed my major, so I just felt like just follow your first instinct and just, then go all the way. Yeah, but I definitely want to continue pursuing my fashion career, to start my business and open up my clothing line and, just go from there.
Sure. My name is Greg Walsh. I live here in Baltimore. My background is in human-centered design. My inspiration usually comes from some type of historic piece or something, or a function I'm interested in. One of the things that I really like is sort of that adventure kind of clothing that people used to wear to go on big journeys and trips. I think that's really interesting. In the same way, I'm really interested in sort of future garments, like what people will wear when they travel in space, or what astronauts wear. So I think my inspiration really comes around that function. Like, what is it that they're trying to do? And then I like to pair it with something historical. The tweed jacket that I have is based off of an Abercrombie and Fitch catalog from 1909. The idea was I had read a lot about that time period. It was Edwardian. I had done a lot of work before with some Victorian clothes, and usually I don't get an opportunity to make men's stuff. So it was a good opportunity for me to look for something that was a men's garment as well as historically based. So I focused on a jacket, but I made a story behind it, and I think that's what's important. That's one of my parts of my process, is that this jacket, in my mind, was designed for Teddy Roosevelt to go hunting a creature called a snallygaster. And so a snallygaster is this cryptoid that apparently lives in Frederick, Maryland, that Teddy Roosevelt was thinking of going on an African safari and instead going to Frederick to hunt the snallygaster. So I imagined, what would his jacket look like? So that's why I looked for some historical documents, historical catalogs, what the clothes looked like at the time. And then I tried to pick some colors that I thought would blend in with the woods of Frederick, as well as some little pieces such as 3D printed brass buttons. And so that's sort of the story behind that jacket. The dress that I made, that was me trying to sort of channel Mark Rothko, the painter, and Banksy. So if there was I really wanted something that was much more modern than a Rothko kind of dress, like what a Rothko dress would look like. I wanted to add a hood and kind of like an over garment. At the same time, it's pretty classical, which I think is really a fun part about some of my work. I'm really heavily influenced by how the Disney company designs theme park attractions. And one of their key elements is storytelling. And so I will often begin with a story that I want to tell. And that's a cycle of combining sort of research on the topic, understanding, basically creating characters, creating personas of what the people who would wear these clothes might look like. I think about sort of what's going on in that era, be it historical or in the future, try and put that together into some type of story. And then once I have a story, then I start sketching, and I sketch a lot. I use my iPad for all my sketching so I don't lose anything. And I look for fabrics, but I try not to be too heavily influenced at first. I kind of just look for like the silhouettes and shapes. Then I start thinking about like what kind of fabrics I want to use for my pieces. I try to sketch a lot of different versions. Once I have that, then I start thinking about the pattern for, what's the shape of it in terms of, how do I have to draft the pattern to the person I'm making it for. And then once I have that, I make lots of muslins. And so those are in my collection as well. It's not usually something I think you put into a fashion show, but I just really think that the evolution is just as important as sort of the final piece. So I do a lot of muslins, I get my shapes right, I get my fit right, and then, I finally start cutting fabric. Yeah, I would say study as much as you can all kinds of topics. Learn about history, learn about math, learn about technology in particular, learn about other design, learn about graphic design. Think about some really cool fashion design over the last 10 years. There's a lot of graphic design in them that goes into their patterns, their fabric patterns, I should say, not the shape patterns. Learn about writing. You have to be a good communicator and just kind of explore it. And also don't feel like you have to do it yourself. Definitely, find a class, take some different instruction, learn more about the basics so that you can build from there.
Well, my name is Kate, and I'm from Baltimore, and I'm often inspired by the fabrics that I see when I'm out and about. I often see a fabric and then it makes me think about what I want to create. And so I had found these two upholstery fabrics at a scrap fabric sale, and they inspired me to make these kind of like wide-legged 70s style trousers. And then I also am inspired by my muse, Marie, my friend Marie. She works in the fashion industry, and she just inspires me to work on my construction and creating garments. And so in the back here I made this top that was inspired by scrap fabrics and mermaids, because she loves mermaids. And as we've grown older, I was encouraging her to find sort of a more high fashion way to wear mermaid-inspired clothing. And so this top was a patchwork of different fabrics that I had left over from different projects, and I turned it into this puff sleeve mermaid top. Yeah, so this one I had created sort of a collection in my mind that was called The Telltale Heart, and it was inspired by Edgar Allan Poe and also sort of like Valentine's Day. And so I had also had this fabric for many years. I'd always really loved this, but I ended up putting this fabric into this beautiful skirt and into the under collar of the jacket to kind of draw it together. Yeah, so this is the teddy bear, also known as couture bear. I've always just really been into sort of like reduce, reuse, recycle, and the idea that, I know the fashion industry is one of the most wasting industries. Often when we cut out a pattern, we end up discarding tons of scrap fabrics. And so just like in this top here, I often try to use scraps to construct something else. And I had a pattern for a teddy bear, and I decided that I would make this couture bear out of the leftover remnants from the pants that I had constructed And so he just sort of sits around and looks cute. I always wanted to learn how to sew as a kid, and it's been in the last few years that I've really put some effort into learning how to sew clothing. There's sort of a lot that goes into it between pattern making, fit, and garment construction. I have to wear sort of like this business type of attire to work, and I find that in general it's kind of boring. It often doesn't fit well, making it kind of uncomfortable. So I've been inspired to try to design my own sort of formal wear that has little flashes of color. And I guess for myself, I kind of see my future in some sort of like LGBTQA+++ wedding sort of idea with women's like formal wear and sort of avant-garde crazy dresses. I would like to make things that are sort of more like sculptural art almost than clothing. But right now I'm focusing on learning how to construct garments. A lot of people are like, oh, just make me a suit, just make me this. It's not really that simple. And so right now I'm really just working on the basics. A lot of these tops with the puff sleeves, basic pants, basic skirts, pencil skirts, to sort of build my foundation. And so my recommendation to anyone coming up in the industry would be to find what inspires you and really work on the basics first so that you can build a firm foundation from there.
Hi, my name is Chelsea, and I am a current student at BCCC. I also teach kids classes. So with this Gothic collection I have, it's called Shades of Darkness. So I mainly I first look for fabrics that I find cool, and like they're black, but they have like different textures to them. If you notice, none of my pieces, even though they're all black, look the same fabric-wise. So that's kind of the beginning of where I go with it. And then when I see the fabric, it normally inspires me of what I want to make with it. So I don't think a lot of people work that way, but that's how I do. I took the costume history class at BCCC, and one of our projects was to make an outfit inspired by a decade. My decade was the 70s, so I did this jumpsuit that also I think has a very Morticia flair. Some of these are not actually part of my main collection. Some of these are one-off pieces and other things I do. For example, the gray dress was actually for my brother's wedding. I normally like wearing black, clearly, but I didn't want to wear black to a wedding. I'm also really into Disney, and this is a Disney-bound dress, which is when you pick a character and create a look that you could wear in everyday life for them, so it's not actually the costume. So my future goals, I definitely want to continue this like Gothic subculture style I have going on. It just fits my personality, but I also would love to work for Disney one day, making their costumes. Any advice I have for future students here? Take as many classes as you can on sewing and with different instructors, because you always learn something new from everyone.
Hi, my name is Tishawn, and I'm from Baltimore, Maryland. I've been at BCCC for 2.5 years now. My background in fashion is I literally just started sewing maybe like 3 years ago. So my background starts here. My inspiration started because of my children. I had 3 sons, and then I finally had a daughter. And when I had a daughter, I always liked fashion, but I started creating stuff when I had her. So she's really like my inspiration behind fashion. So I am interested in Ankara fabric, and I'm really interested in mixing it with like different fabrics, different textures, lace, and stuff like that. So my process is really just thinking about what I want to draw. Like the other day, I literally had a dream, and I jumped right out the bed and I sketched everything that I dreamed about, and then I started creating it. Some of my challenges are time management, and I don't know everything yet. I've been sewing maybe about probably about 3 years now. So this bustier was inspired from just creating bustiers. I love creating them, and this is an underbust. It's a corset actually, and I like the print and the black together, and the leather. I just like mixing different fabrics. My collection is called Beautiful Disaster, and I called it that because it's basically all about accepting your imperfections. You know, everyone has beauty with them, but everybody also has certain imperfections. And if you can embrace your imperfections, that's like the advice that I would give to anyone. Like, just embrace, everything's not going to be perfect all the time, but embrace it.
Well, my name is Troveana Diawara. I'm a senior in the fashion program, and I really started sewing, about 2007. My grandma took me to a crochet class where I learned how to crochet, and after that, I got a sewing machine for Christmas, and I've been sewing ever since. What inspires me really is nature. At least, at this point in my work, I'm really inspired by nature, plants, trees, flowers, mushrooms. It's the life cycle in nature that is what's appealing to me, how things die and come back. I like the rebirth, that is emphasized in nature. I've named this collection Flora Aura. It has the aura of, being that of something botanical. Lots of the colors that I've used, reflect, flower colors, or even have flowers on some of the fabrics. And even the designs are more springy, summery designs, where to me, nature is at its peak. So my process, it really varies, garment to garment. Usually I have an idea and I like to flush it out, and usually that's by writing, because I wasn't always the most confident in my drawing skills. I've recently, overcome that as well. So yeah, I typically start with making a list, of all the components of the look or the design. Typically that's where I start, and then usually in that list I have fabrics or colors, that I'm leaning towards or, kind of feeling for the garment. And once I have the fabric picked out, well, I start working on the pattern and zip, zam, boom. I think my goals as far as fashion, so I would really like to break into the costuming industry, working, with costuming houses, couture houses even, with, an affiliation with museums, theaters, movie productions, those kinds of things. I would tell any future designers that are thinking about pursuing fashion to go for it, be true to yourself, believe in yourself. I think that was a big obstacle I had to overcome. I'm coming back to school 8 years after graduating high school, because it took me that long to work up the belief that I can do this, I got this. So believe in yourself, don't let fear hold you back, allow yourself to bloom, and really just go for it. Be true to yourself. That's what I would say.
Okay, so I'm Tiffany Rice. I'm class of 2020, fashion design here at BCCC. And, coming here was easily, hands down, one of the best decisions that I've made in my life. You actually have a bulletin board in the background that has a sewing machine featured on it that says fashion sewing is my therapy. And literally that's how it started for me. I was in graduate school and I just had this internal urge to pick up the sewing machine. I had a little bit of interest when I took family and consumer sciences in middle school, but just didn't get a chance to nurture that talent. But when I got a little bit more freedom living on my own in graduate school, just something in me told me to pick up that sewing machine. And just the rest is history. And I just got this nagging feeling that I needed to come to design school. And, you know, I did it. I didn't know exactly what my plan was when I came here. Like, I thought maybe I might start a blog or something like that where I like document some of my projects, but I just did not know that fashion like would just explode my world in a way that it did. You know, BCCC is responsible for my I guess pushing me to do my first fashion shows. There was faculty here that convinced me to do DC Fashion Week, and believe it or not, on that very day that I did DC Fashion Week, I became a brand. I became a brand. In terms of how my sewing journey really started, it really was born out of my own self-esteem journey. You know, I was a plus size young woman, and we just didn't have as many garment options on the market at the time. Now there's a lot more, you know, trendier clothes out, but at the time, you know, we're talking a decade ago, there really wasn't as many options for like young and trendy people. And so I started making my going out clothes, and that was just my little secret escape from, you know, being in grad school for social work. And then I just started mixing and mingling. I used to go to New York and hang out at fashion events. And one of the events that I went to, summer of I think 2015, it was a swimwear event. Sorry, I got tongue tied there. And I created my first swimsuit for that event because at the time, Forever 21 had just started making their first collection of plus size swimwear, but the fit was off. And I guess, I don't know if you call it ego or what, I knew the media was going to be there, and so I knew the fit needed to be right. And so I deconstructed the swimsuit. I used the fabric, but I deconstructed it and made it into my own. Second year I went to the same event, and that swimsuit that I made, I ended up in a fashion magazine. I ended up in Essence magazine style for that swimsuit. And you know, when it became time for me to actually go to fashion school, and it came time for me to do my first fashion show, it was just kind of like a no-brainer for me to do swimwear. And so I liked the challenge, but also it was part of my own self-esteem journey, like learning to accept myself as a plus size girl, that really got me into fashion. And it just continues to, you know, go. I love working with women. I love inspiring them. I love helping them love themselves. I think that's just a part of just naturally being Tiffany. That's a part of me being a therapist, you know, by training. And I see those worlds get to come together when I do my work with my brand, Milk and Honey.
And I love that concept when you said plus size women, because we all know today it's more plus size women than unplus size women, and we do want to feel beautiful as well. Talk about the color blocking, your color palette, in when you create, and also to in the process, in your processing from what inspired in processing your garment line for plus size swimwear women.
Yeah. And see, these particular swimsuits, they are straight size because I do work with a variety of sizes. But even when I do work with a variety of women, I always make sure I have space for plus size women. I always talk about when I design, when I think about my clothing, I tell everyone I dream in color. Right. I never design in black. Now, maybe, you know, after I do the initial, you know, design, I might make a copy in black, but I never design in black. I think in very bright colors. And even with my own personal style, you know, I love colors. And I've actually equated my love for color and my inspiration with color with my African American journey, and not even just African American, being part of the African diaspora. A lot of my personal clothes are made of Ankara. When you look at African media, it's bright colors. You look at the music videos, bright colors. And so my use of color really does come from, I feel like, my African American experience, my Black experience, you know, growing up as a kid in the 90s in New York, the bright colors, you know, Puff Daddy with bright suits on, you know, gold jewelry and so on. That was the aesthetic that I grew up on. So really my use of color is, for me, a part of my Blackness.
Awesome, because I do like when you emphasize, when you put the ethnicity, the boldness of the color, historical as you put together, because I too remember being part of this particular class that we're doing now when you was under me, because I still have, right to this day, and you knew my favorite color is red.
And I made you a bright red swimsuit,
that I
bright
on the
red,
yes.
Fire engine lipstick red.
And I still have it right to this day. I haven't put it on yet, still, but I still have it, and I cherish that today, that I too have a piece of milk and honey, the milk and honey line. Now, even though you are a illustrious alum, and I love it with you because you come back and pay back to the students and talk to the students. You have a bright future that you get ready to take a new journey.
Yes.
With you. Can you explain to us the new journey that you're about to explore in this industry? Yeah.
So actually it was my time at BCCC that had reignited a desire to go abroad, to go to Europe and stay in Europe. I kind of missed that boat when I originally went to undergrad, but when I came back to BCCC and I was a student again, you know, I realized that I had this opportunity to travel on student visa again. And so it felt like this was my shot again. And so I always kept it in the back of my mind. Some of my peers, I talked about it. I would always talk in the context of when I get to go to London, when I get to go to London, when I get to go to London. And I graduated during the pandemic. And so the timeline was shifted a bit, but the travel laws had shifted as well. And so they extended the timelines that people could travel on student visa. So you didn't have to do it within a year of graduating. You could do it within 2 years of graduating. And so I graduated in the summertime. We had our ceremony on YouTube, summer 2020. And so by spring 2022, I was in London. And it just all made sense to me, because it's like I had it just felt like a calling from the first time I went to Europe, first time I went to London when I was 15. Even though objectively I kind of didn't have a good time on that trip, just with the group that I was with, but it was something that was ignited in me, and it was strange. Like I would have these moments in my life where it's like, I miss Europe, I need to go back to Europe. It was so unexplained. It was almost like it was like a past life memory, or like something like downloaded in my DNA at the time. And so BCCC like gave me that fire, and I went back, and when I actually stayed in London for a few months, it just all made sense for me. Like I met so many nice people. The culture, the industry, they very much value sewing. They very much value the fashion industry. Is one of the top 3 fashion industry cities in the entire world. And I just fell in love with it, and it just started to make sense. And so now I'm returning this time with an actual visa, a talent visa, a global talent visa. So I was endorsed for, actually it's one of the highest visas that you can get in the UK. It's actually nicknamed the Genius Visa. And so I actually had a Genius Visa for fashion design. And I kind of underestimated myself in the process because there's different levels of visa that you can apply for. And, you know, based on my background and the descriptions that they gave, I thought I would come in at the potential level. They have like a level for like, oh, you got some promise. But they ended up giving me a higher visa than I even applied for. And, you know, I just got that feeling again, like, hey, this is that shot, you know, this is the shot, you know, and I just went with it. And, you know, I've just enjoyed the relationships that I've built in London. I had my first fashion show there last October, so the end of October. Actually, it was like Halloween weekend, that time frame. And so you'll see some of the prints actually from the London show. So these actually did come from the London show, believe it or not. Awesome. Yeah. And so so you'll see on my video some of I made some newer stuff in the London prints, but yeah, this came directly from my last show, which was in London.
That is awesome. And I like it when you said that, and it comes to me, speak those things that are not as those they are, because even though you were saying, I'm going to get there, I'm going to get there, I'm going to get there, and now you're getting there, and the beauty part about it, as you were speaking it, believing it, walking it, they're giving you the highest that you did not underestimate. Sometimes we just like underestimate, but it shows that doors has been opened, that you're going walking in your potential. For those who are coming behind you, so you had already talked about your future, what you're going to be doing, so they really don't need to ask because you're really walking in what you're saying you're going to do. For those future fashion designers that are walking in your path, what inspiration, encouraging words, advice do you give to the students and future designers that's coming up behind you on the same path that you're traveling?
Two things stand out in my mind. The first is and they actually relate to each other. The first is to put yourself out there. No one's going to know your designs if you don't go places, if you don't show. And I know I was, you know, a bit ambitious. That's, I guess, kind of my personality. So I would put myself out there by doing runway shows. And while like my first runway show started locally, like in Washington, D.C. But yes, and you were there. Yes. You were there. And the excitement of it all.
Yes, it was.
Because apparently I did the first complete full figure like line in DC Fashion Week history, and I was just doing a student project. I just thought I was just being true to myself. That's what I did, but didn't even know that it would shake up the crowd in the way that it did. But put yourself out there. You know, there are so many shows, there are so many opportunities to go all around the nation and show. Some of these shows have very, you know, affordable designer fees, you know, in the low 100s. Some of them are actually free. And the reason why I like doing fashion shows is because it always forced me to be better. But it also prevented me from being lazy because there was always a crowd that was there. And it forced me to get better each time, because I would remember my last show and maybe the mistakes I made or what I wanted to do differently, and it drove my creativity. It allowed me to get in touch with my creative process. Like, for instance, music inspired me quite a bit. I'll choose a song that's the theme of the show, and it may not actually be the track that's played on there, but it's the inspiration. And almost in a synesthesia kind of way, the music will create image in my head, and that's where the designs are born out of. Second, and it relates to that first statement that I made, travel travel. There's so many young people here, especially when you're under 30. You are allowed to go to so many different places in the world on a young people's visa, on student visas. They give a lot of those young people travel privileges when you are under, 30. Places like Japan, places like France, places like Ireland and the UK. Your mind explodes when you're exposed to this. And we have the benefit of Baltimore being a very creative, focused city. And I appreciate the creatives that helped nurture me here. Actually, I have one of them here. She's a DJ. She's actually a legend in the Baltimore club music scene.
I think I've seen her before.
Yes. But like, she was one of those creatives that helped nurture me and, being in that energy. And then for me to lean into my own, creativity, But we're also bigger than Baltimore. And the world deserves to see Baltimore beyond the wire.
Exactly.
It's a certain energy that comes. So yeah, put yourself out there. If that means getting a summer job so that you can, pay for your fees, they might cost maybe like $2,000-$3,000 initially up front, but the student paperwork allows you to get a part-time job when you're over there. Go take that internship. Grow your skills. Meet other people, because that will keep your name in people's mouths. And to be honest, the vast majority of the opportunities I had is because people spoke of me when I wasn't in the room. Because I can't afford to have my eyes everywhere. I'm still working social work. I still do therapy and teach classes and stuff like that. But so much of it came from people speaking of me when I wasn't in the room. I ended up going to LA doing a show for BET Awards weekend with celebrity stylists, all the reality TV stars and all of that stuff in the audience. And then he came back to me because he saw the work that I put in. He's like, I have a service. I could put your clothes on celebrities. Now, at the time, I was paying for BCCC out of pocket. So I was like, listen, I got to pay for my classes, okay? I can't do this right now. Exactly. But, awesome. These opportunities do come up, and it's not impossible. And really, I feel like I'm only at the tip of the iceberg in terms of what I'm capable of and where my career is going. But it's so many things happen here. Fashion was the first thing that allowed my name to be on a billboard. And these things are not out of reach. If you're passionate and you put your heart into it and you bring your unique style sense, people are going to jam with you. Awesome. You will have a fan base and people will support you. Awesome. And like I said, they will speak your name in rooms when you are not there.
Awesome. And then one thing I like about it, talking with you, feeling your aura, your spirit, is the humility. A lot of people speak on that, how humility plays a big part in this industry of getting you out there, because a lot of designers, especially amongst the African American, that they don't understand, if you humbled, it can go further. Expound a little bit more on that, because a lot of designers do not realize or understand being humble. I know from experience in this industry, it's going to take you further than coming in thinking you're a big boss and with a bad attitude. Expound to us that humility, how it helped you in this industry to get where you at now.
It's a fine balance. You have to be aware of three things. What you do bring to the table, where you need to grow, but also have that humility there. Humility doesn't mean that you have to look down upon yourself, but it also means that you understand where your growth needs to be. And, you know, in my case, you know, coming from a world of being like a therapist and then having this self-esteem focus on my work, I bring myself to these spaces where there aren't a lot of people kind of like me. But you know what it caused? Loyalty in this field. I repeat work with certain models. When I do a call for models, people are clamoring to work with me because your humility, treating people nice, helping people love themselves, which we're in an industry where they sell clothes based on making you not love yourself.
Exactly.
You know? And that has caused, like I said, a lot of loyalty from different people in the field. Like I said, it makes people more willing to speak my name up when I'm not in the room. And it makes you open to learning and going places where you can learn. One of the reasons why I'm so excited about London is so many classes and so many things to learn. You know, Central St. Martin's is one of the top fashion schools in the world, and they have little weekend courses and stuff. I would love to go take a corset making class over there. I would love to take like a swimsuit business class over there. That would be so fun to just network with people. And just the world, you know, the world opens up. It really opens up. You know, again, it's about balance, you know, knowing what you bring to the table, knowing what your unique aesthetic is. But yeah, because oftentimes people who lack humility, it's sad because they kind of don't know what they don't know.
Exactly.
And so it does kind of end up looking foolish, you know. Some of my classmates and I have joked before, back when I was here, and some of them had like little you know, little, I guess, fake internships with like some of the cool people, you know, the cool stylists or whatever like that. Yeah. But you know, we would joke. I was like, I bet you they don't even backstitch on the machine when they're sewing their garments, and they don't. They don't. They're sewing fur, other stuff, the fur falling off at the event.
Oh,
you know.
We had some times, yes we did. We had some good times.
I was like, they don't even know the backstitch, you know.
Timing, even though in timing, that far as time management, and being your instructor, my theory was what? Before time, what is on time? If you on time, you're late. Cause I will lock that door because it's real in this industry.
But she gave me grace, though. I have to say, she gave me so much grace, because I think she ended up, Professor Jackson picked up that like I was trying to balance a career and be here, and I would try to come running come from work. Yeah.
What about that in the industry? Because a lot of designers don't understand deadlines and having things done before time, because in this industry, speak on the importance, because there going to be a designer out there don't realize timing. Explain the importance of deadlines and before deadlines in this industry, because our future designers our future young designers as well as old do not understand that. Explain real quickly the briefness of importance of that in this industry.
Okay, so a couple of things come to mind. Personally, with timing, you have to strike when the iron is hot. You know, this is a dynamic industry, and people lose interest quickly because there are a lot of young, hungry people out there. And so when a certain opportunity comes, sometimes you have to know how to jump on it. But also as an industry, as a global industry, we are very much based on having strict timelines, from production to having to have, garments produced at the factory in time in order for order fulfillment if you're wholesaling to like a retailer, or even if you're doing the independent route where maybe you're crowdfunding or you're doing like what's it called, pre-order campaigns, you lose people's interest, you lose people's trust when you aren't timely, but also it can be very expensive. If you said that you're going to fulfill that order for Macy's in a 4-week turnaround, and it turns to be 8, that might actually throw off the entire season. And that can lose some people millions. So, you know, it's very, because, you know, in your class, you know, textile science, you know, we talk about that supply chain. You know, fashion moves through a supply chain. You throw off something in that supply chain, it's a wrap. And if you're new in the game, that could be catastrophic for your career. Now, if you're doing one-off, handmade, made to measure stuff for people, sometimes there is a little bit of flexibility in there. But you also have to know yourself. You have to know your style. One of the things that I had to learn, now having done probably a dozen runway shows now, I had to learn to pace myself. You know, my creative energy, my regular energy gets taxed when I have to rush. And so there has to be a timeline to allow myself to plan, get my supplies, account for if there might be, it ran out in one place and I got enough time to go get it somewhere else, knowing what my energy looks like up and down, especially if I'm working a full-time job, so that I can get this done without being stressed.
Awesome. Thank you so much. It has been a pleasure to see my alum come back.
Thank you. I love coming here.
Flourish, and it's going to blossom even the more in this industry. I want to say personally, I'm so proud of you.
Thank you.
To be your instructor here in this department.
Thank you.